The hearing was already 62 minutes behind schedule, the kind of delay that sucks the air out of a room, leaving nothing but stale tension and overworked aides checking their watches. Most lawmakers sat slumped in their seats, scrolling on phones, whispering to staffers sipping lukewarm coffee. Cable news channels had started to fade out, cutting to commercials or pundit panels, waiting for something, anything to happen. Nothing was happening, at least not yet. At the back of the room, the camera panned slowly past dull expressions, flickering nameplates, and glazed-over stares. Then it paused. Not because someone spoke, but because someone moved. For the first 45 minutes, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett had said almost nothing. No outbursts, no interruptions. But now, she leaned forward, slowly, deliberately. Her hand reached up, removed her glasses. A murmur swept through the staff table behind her, the kind that usually comes right before a fire alarm. No one knew what she was about to say, but everyone could feel it. This wasn't going to be procedural. The clock ticked louder than it should have, and Jasmine was just getting started. Jasmine leaned in. No raised voice, no theatrics, just a calm, measured tone, the kind that slices deeper than a shout. She adjusted the microphone with one finger, cleared her throat. And then came 10 words that stopped time in the Capitol. We need to talk about who fathered Barron Trump. Silence. Real, suffocating silence. The kind that makes your ears ring. Every camera in the room jerked to attention. The C-SPAN feed zoomed in close enough to see the glint of her wedding band and the stillness in her eyes. In homes across the country, viewers dropped their remotes. On Capitol Hill, aides looked up mid-sentence, mouths half open. And in a private hallway just outside the Roosevelt Room, Donald J. Trump saw his own face on a muted television screen just as her words echoed from a nearby TV. Who fathered Barron Trump? He stopped walking, didn't blink, didn't speak. But his scowl tightened, that telltale half-snarl the country had come to recognize. Something had cracked, and America knew this was no longer a hearing. This was a detonation. She didn't stop after 10 words. She flipped a page. The paper made a soft shh sound, almost too quiet for the microphone to catch, but the silence in the room made it deafening. Jasmine held it up for the cameras. "What I'm holding is not gossip," she said. "It's a sealed court record stamped in Arizona 2019. She paused just long enough to let the words burn in. Inside, it references a $3.1 million payment to a woman known only as TB, under an NDA, with a pending DNA confirmation. Gasps echoed around the chamber. Congressman Overby tried to interrupt, but Jasmine didn't flinch, didn't blink, didn't even look up from the photocopy. You don't bury this kind of document unless it threatens someone powerful. C-SPAN's feed zoomed closer. Viewers saw it now. Not a headline, not speculation. A legal file, real, dated, redacted, but intact. And in bold, unredacted font, paternity agreement enforced under non-disclosure. This wasn't political theater anymore. It was a paper trail. And it had teeth. The Roosevelt Room was silent until it wasn't. Trump stood frozen in front of the wall-mounted TV, eyes locked on Jasmine Crockett's face. Then, in one motion, he grabbed the remote and hurled it across the room. It hit the far wall, shattered into 3 pieces. No one breathed. "Get CNN on the phone, now! Where's Hope? Where the hell is my lawyer? Get me Melania! Wake her if you have to!" Aides scattered. Some grabbed phones, others just froze. The air was thick with panic, not the kind that runs, but the kind that collapses inward. Chief of Staff Brian Halford tried to speak, but Trump cut him off. "Did she just say what I think she said?" Halford hesitated. "Sir, she showed documents." Trump's face flushed red. Not just anger, fear. He looked around the room, eyes darting. Do we know what she has? Do we know who leaked it? No one answered. Someone near the back mumbled something about a digital records office, but their voice barely carried. It didn't matter. The damage was done. One by one, the staffers' expressions shifted from confusion to concern to pure panic. Because they all knew, if what she had was real, and it looked very real, then this wasn't just a scandal, it was a crisis. And it had already begun. Trump snatched his phone and hit speed dial. Hope, now. You saw it. Hope Sinclair, his personal legal counsel, answered on speaker. Her voice was calm. Too calm. Yes, I saw it. Jasmine Crockett went nuclear. Trump growled, "It's slander. Tell me we can sue, her, the network, all of them." A pause. Then Hope said it. The sentence no one wanted to hear. If she has that affidavit, it's not slander. It's evidence. The room fell silent. Even the interns stopped typing. Trump's jaw clenched. We buried this, Hope. We buried it. Hope's voice dropped. You buried it inside a legal machine, but machines leak. She continued steady. The NDA can only hold if no third party obtains the documentation. If it was leaked by someone inside the courts, may side with disclosure. You're not dealing with tabloids anymore, sir. You're dealing with Congress. And with that, the dam cracked, because the truth wasn't just whispered in the hallway anymore. It was echoing through the halls of power. And the lawyers finally couldn't control it. Trump sat down, hard. He was gripping the edge of the table like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. The room was still buzzing from Hope's words. It's not slander, it's evidence. Then he muttered something, not to the room, not to anyone, just to himself. This is all because of that stupid agreement. Halford looked up. So did Marjorie Klein. Even the young aide in the corner dropped her pen. Silence. Then Halford spoke. Soft. Calculated. Sir, how long have you known? Trump didn't answer. He didn't have to. The look on his face, tight, withdrawn, like something old had just surfaced, told them more than words ever could. He knew. Not just rumors, not speculation. He had known for years. A cold realization swept through the room. They hadn't been defending a man fighting lies. They'd been defending someone hiding the truth. Klein backed away a step. Halford leaned forward. Do we need to prep Barron? The name hit like a slap. Trump flinched. His jaw tightened. Leave him out of this, he snapped. He's still my son. But no one in the room looked convinced, because for the first time in a long time, he didn't sound sure. Genevieve Larson had just pulled into her driveway. It was 6:07 a.m. The sky above El Sereno, California, was still dusky bruised with early light. She was still in scrubs, navy blue, wrinkled blood pressure cuff still looped around her pocket. Another night shift at St. Vincent's. Another 12 hours of caring for strangers. She hadn't turned off the ignition yet. She was still holding her iced coffee, half melted. Then her phone lit up. 4 missed calls, 1 voicemail. A text from her neighbor. You need to see this, like now. Genevieve tapped the link. It was a shaky clip reposted from C-SPAN, now viral on Twitter. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, on national TV, holding a file, saying TB, saying DNA, saying $3.1 million. Genevieve's breath caught in her throat. Her hand dropped the coffee. Plastic cracked against the floor mat. She didn't need to hear the rest. She knew what this was. Because TB wasn't just a code. It was her, Talia Breyer, the name she used in court, the name she tried to leave behind. It was never supposed to mean anything. That's what she told herself the night it happened. Washington, D.C., 2005. She was 31, bright, focused, a surgical tech invited to a healthcare gala by a friend of a friend. She didn't drink much. She wasn't looking for anyone. She didn't even plan to stay long. But then he walked in. Not with a parade, not with fanfare. Just that signature walk, all confidence and calculation. Donald J. Trump. He wasn't president then. He was power in raw form. Money, media, myth. And he saw her. He complimented her laugh, told her she looked too smart to be in medicine, made her feel seen. Dangerous, but seen. They ended up in a hotel suite that night, room 1903, the Hay Adams Hotel, overlooking the White House. She still remembered the champagne bottle he ordered but never opened, the way he asked her questions and didn't wait for answers, the way his hand grazed hers and how it didn't feel like a choice. Genevieve didn't cry that night, not then. Not yet, but 8 weeks later she did, because that's when the pregnancy test turned positive, and everything changed, forever. Genevieve didn't tell anyone, not her mother, not her sister, not even the father listed on the birth certificate, because there wasn't one. 8 weeks after that hotel room, she tried to contact him, once. He dismissed her with a smirk and a line she would never forget. "I'm not the guy, handle it." A week later, his lawyers called. She wasn't allowed to speak about what happened. She wasn't allowed to mention his name. She wasn't even allowed to list him as the father on legal forms. In exchange, she got a one-time payment, a document stamped and notarized non-disclosure agreement, signed by both parties, bound by silence. It wasn't hush money, they told her. It was peace of mind. Genevieve used the money to disappear. She left D.C., moved west, took a job under a new name, Talia B. New driver's license. New story. New life. And when her son was born, she didn't tell him the truth. Not because she was ashamed, but because she was afraid. Afraid of what power could do. Afraid of who might come knocking. For years, the name Trump was just a headline on her kitchen TV. She never said it aloud, never corrected her son when he asked why he didn't look like Uncle Leo, never imagined it would come back, but now it had. Because Jasmine Crockett just spoke the name she buried 18 years ago, and this time the world was listening. It didn't take long. 72 seconds of congressional footage, clipped, edited, slowed down, re-uploaded, had gone worldwide in under 2 hours. On TikTok, one clip showed Jasmine Crockett gripping the affidavit. The camera zoomed in on her steady hands, no shaking, no hesitation. Another clip used dramatic music. Each word she said was typed across the screen in bold white font. "We need to talk about who fathered Barron Trump." On Twitter, the hashtags were War Drums, Not His Son, Crockett Truth, DNA Gate. Some said it was slander. Some said it was bravery. But no one could stop talking about it. Instagram Reels cut between Crockett's moment and Trump's silence. Reddit threads spun conspiracy, satire, legal theory. YouTube exploded with reaction videos, lawyers breaking down the affidavit line by line. This wasn't just viral, this was cultural combustion. In an age where truth used to travel slow, now it traveled by 4G and camera angles. One post read, "She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. The paper spoke louder." Another simply said, "Jasmine Crockett just changed the election and she did it with receipts." By the end of the day, the numbers were undeniable. 16. 7 million TikTok views, 4.9 million Twitter impressions. CNN's highest midday rating in 5 years. A trending topic in 37 countries. The truth buried for years under power and process was now being stitched into short-form videos. Clipped into loops, played in living rooms and classrooms and break rooms. And people were watching, really watching. Lorna Peake had just finished filling her tank, 42 years old, Dayton, Ohio. She wiped her hands with a napkin, reached for her phone. A push alert from the AP. Crockett raises explosive allegation about Trump on live TV. She almost ignored it. She didn't usually click headlines like that. But something about it, the word explosive, the calmness in Crockett's face on the thumbnail, made her pause. She tapped. The video buffered, then played. By the time Crockett said paternity, Lorna forgot all about the gas pump. Inside the store, CNN was blaring behind the counter. The cashier had stopped ringing people up. Two customers stared in silence. Across the country, in Seattle, Denzel Yates, 19, sat in the break room of an Apple store. He was halfway through his leftover pad thai. His coworker Dana stared at her phone. Wait, is she saying Trump's not the dad? Denzel didn't even look up. She didn't say it, she showed it. At a high school in Mesa, Arizona, a junior named Alicia sat frozen in class. The video played on a classmate's phone, passed around like contraband. When it got to the part about the affidavit, she stood up, tears in her eyes, and walked out. Her civics teacher, Mrs. Roach, later scrapped her original lesson plan. Instead, she wrote one question on the board. Can hiding the truth be considered a form of violence? 3 hours of discussion followed. Because now, this wasn't just a headline anymore. It was personal. It started as a whisper, a tweet, a comment under a viral video. If he had nothing to hide, why didn't he just take the test? It echoed on talk radio. It showed up in sermons. It was scribbled in the margins of high school notebooks and posted on coffee shop chalkboards. It wasn't political, it was human. Because deep down, everyone knew, when someone avoids a simple answer, you start to question everything else they've said. At a barber shop in Tallahassee, a man in a Raptors jersey leaned back in the chair and muttered, "If it was me, I'd have taken that test the same day." The barber paused, clippers still running, then shook his head slowly. He didn't need to take it. He needed us not to ask for it. In a church in Mobile, Alabama, Pastor Denson changed his sermon mid-preach. He looked out at his congregation and said, "There's a difference between privacy and hiding. And when truth knocks, you don't hide behind stained glass." On Reddit, someone posted a poll. Is avoiding the truth worse than lying? The vote wasn't even close. In Minneapolis, a college student wrote in her ethics paper, "We don't punish silence because it's quiet. We punish it because it's used as a weapon." And inside the White House, they could feel it. That one question. Simple, sharp, unavoidable. If he had nothing to hide, why didn't he just take the test? Conrad Wells wasn't flashy. No blue check mark, no podcast deal, no cable appearances. Just an old-school reporter with a cracked leather notebook, a slow laptop, and a sharp instinct for rotting power. He didn't care about viral videos, he cared about patterns. And Jasmine Crockett's words, "sealed court documents, Arizona 2019, triggered something he hadn't thought about in years. He opened a folder on his desktop labeled NDA Pattern 2017. Inside old FE filings, real estate transfers, legal reimbursements, and one obscure wire transfer from a Trump-linked shell company to a lab called Red Lantern Diagnostics in Phoenix. Most had missed it, but not Conrad. He picked up the phone, called an old clerk in Maricopa County. "I need everything under the initials TB versus JDT. Family court, around mid-2019. She paused. Then whispered, "You're not the first to ask today." 3 hours later, he had it. Well, he had the outline. A family court motion, filed July 3, 2019. Case TB versus JDT. Marked Emergency Confidentiality Request, status resolved privately, sealed within 3 hours. No ruling, no judgment, just buried. And that was the red flag. Because in family court, sealing a case in 3 hours doesn't happen unless someone very powerful wants it gone. Rosanna Vitorelli had spent 42 years in law, 19 on the bench, and with just 5 months left until retirement, she thought she'd seen it all. Until the letter arrived. Thick envelope, no return address, stamped confidential, judicial eyes only. She didn't recognize the handwriting, but the second she saw the first line, "This was the document you chose not to read," her hands began to tremble. Inside, a copy of a sealed letter, dated July 3, 2019. Signed by the woman listed in the redacted court case. Talia B. Rosanna remembered the hearing. A late filing. Emergency seal request. A private visit from a D.C. liaison, and a recommendation to expedite the closure. Too dangerous for public disclosure, he'd said, for national stability. She never read the letter, never asked questions. She just signed, because sometimes protecting the system meant compromising the truth. But now, nearly 6 years later, she was staring at what she'd ignored, a sworn plea, a mother's voice, a suppressed truth. "I never wanted money. I wanted protection for my son. I didn't come forward for revenge. I came forward because silence is a second betrayal." Tears welled in Rosanna's eyes. She had silenced someone brave. She folded the letter gently, then stood, walked to her safe, and pulled out a manila folder that hadn't been touched since that day in 2019. For the first time she opened it. It was supposed to stay buried. An internal memo never meant for public eyes. Marked, "For executive review only, do not disclose." But someone leaked it. And when Conrad Wells opened the PDF in a dingy motel off I-17 in Phoenix, he knew this was the wall breaker. The heading was cold, clinical. Subject, paternity confirmation request, presidential refusal 2019. Below that, dates. Names redacted, but the initials weren't. JDT, TB. And beneath them, DNA collection declined, risk of political destabilization cited. One line in particular was highlighted in yellow. Client refuses DNA confirmation despite direct counsel urging. Advises to settle via financial means and invoke NDA to contain narrative. He read it twice. This wasn't just personal shame. It was strategic avoidance of legal truth. He scrolled down. Another section barely visible. Recommend deep seal of court materials. Internal routing code HSA3 for Homeland Security indexing. Conrad stared at the screen. The President of the United States had in writing refused a paternity test that could have cleared everything up, and instead opted to pay silence into existence. No more guessing, no more conspiracy. This memo shattered the line between rumor and record. No press conference, no podiums, no polished sound bites, just a manila envelope. And a room so quiet it felt like the air itself was listening. Jasmine Crockett walked in alone. No entourage, no security flanking her. Just that steady stride and the fire behind her eyes. She placed the envelope on the table in front of the Oversight Committee, looked straight ahead, took off her glasses. "I'm not here to repeat myself," she said. No raised voice, no dramatic pause. But the room held its breath. The manila envelope didn't just contain documents, it carried consequences. She pushed it forward. "The public deserves more than denial and deflection," Jasmine continued. "This envelope contains everything your silence tried to erase." A committee member leaned forward, hand trembling. Someone else cleared their throat. "I didn't leak this. I protected it." Then she stepped back, didn't wait for applause, didn't ask for approval. She had already done the hardest part, saying the quiet part out loud. It was just one sheet of paper. No watermark, no gold stamp, no presidential seal. Just a court-issued subpoena dated March 19, 2019, and a signature line left blank. Jasmine Crockett held it up. No need for drama. The page did the screaming. This, she said, is the test he refused to take. A murmur, then silence. I'm not here to protect an image, she continued. I'm here to protect the truth. Camera shutters clicked. Someone in the back dropped a pen. Crockett didn't blink. This isn't about humiliation. This is about integrity. She placed the paper beside the manila envelope like a final nail. A president who fears the truth, she said, shouldn't be allowed to shape it. The room didn't erupt, it cracked. It started with candles, then cardboard signs, then crowds. By noon, state capitals in Arizona, Pennsylvania, and Michigan were surrounded. Some held printed copies of the affidavit. Others just held each other. In Phoenix, a retired Air Force sergeant wiped his eyes. In Atlanta, a group of law students marched in silence. But it was a young mother in Milwaukee who said what the whole country felt. Silence never protected me, she told a local reporter. It protected the man who hurt me. By sundown, Truth Over Titles was trending worldwide. People weren't just angry, they were awakened. News anchors spoke with urgency. Editorials shifted tone. Late-night hosts skipped the jokes. America wasn't watching anymore. America was reacting. She didn't write a book. She didn't go on The View. She didn't sell a story. Jasmine Crockett walked back into Congress with a folder not for the press, but for the record. 2 new bills. One to prevent any sitting president from sealing state-level court documents. Another to protect whistleblowers in digital record systems from political retaliation. No speeches, no sound bites, no fundraising pleas. This isn't about me, she told one reporter. It's about making sure no one has to do what I did ever again. The headlines faded. The hashtags slowed. But somewhere in the House Judiciary filing room, a clerk quietly stamped 2 new files, H.R. 7521, H.R. 7522. History doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just turns the page. By the end of the week, 2 major donors had walked, not with statements, with silence. In Wisconsin, 18% of independent voters filed no preference ballots in the GOP primary. Fox News quietly replaced their Trump campaign banner with "Developing Story, Party in Flux." Behind the scenes, even Halford Trump's longtime fixer gave his first interview since the fallout. He looked tired, not bitter, just finished. She didn't accuse him, he said. She just told the story he spent 2 decades trying to erase. That one sentence echoed louder than any campaign rally chant. The image of control cracked. The myth of loyalty shattered. The empire he built sagged under the weight of what he buried. He didn't call to apologize. He called because he knew it was over. The voice on the other end paused, not in hesitation, but in control. "You built an image, Mr. Trump," she said softly, "but I live with the truth." There was no yelling, no threats, just a silence that knew it had already won. Outside, the world moved on. TikTok found its next scandal. Newsrooms shifted to the next story. But for one man sitting alone in a gold-plated office, the walls didn't feel so tall anymore. The cameras were off. The chants were gone. Only memory remained, and a line that no PR firm could erase. Your image is what you show. Your truth is what you live with. In a world obsessed with image, it's easy to forget that truth always has a pulse. You can bury it, you can silence it, but eventually it breathes again. Jasmine Crockett didn't shout. She didn't accuse blindly. She brought receipts, stood tall, and let the facts speak. The lesson: power is loud, but truth doesn't need to be. And when we stop choosing comfort over courage, we make room for justice. So whether you're a mother protecting your child, a citizen demanding accountability, or someone carrying secrets no one ever bothered to ask about, remember this: what you hide may protect you today, but what you reveal may protect others tomorrow. If this story shook something in you, if it made you angry, hopeful, or even just curious, don't scroll past. Subscribe to this channel for stories that expose power, uplift the silenced, and remind us that the fight for truth isn't over, it's just beginning. Real people, real pain, real justice. Click subscribe and never miss a moment that could change everything.